Hey folks, this is Jason Lewis, the producer of the From the Shadows podcast. I just want to remind you about our website, FromTheShadowsPodcast.com. We have a Facebook page. We would appreciate it if you like and follow. Also, join our discussion group on Facebook called After the Shadows. We have a Twitter feed. Please follow us on Twitter. It can be found with @podcast_from. Follow us on Instagram at From the Shadows Podcast. We have a YouTube channel. Go to the search bar at YouTube and put From the Shadows Podcast, and please subscribe to that channel. We are also on the Odyssey Radio Network, and we can be found there at odyssey1.com. We're still on the traditional podcatchers that everybody loves to listen to us on. We get a lot of feedback, so please rate the podcast and communicate with whether you're on Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, or Google Podcasts. We're there, and we appreciate it when you leave comments for us. We also have a Patreon page. It can be found at www.patreon.com/FromTheShadows. You can receive books, stickers, coffee mugs, and special content just for our Patreon subscribers. Check it out for yourself and see what packages that we have to offer. Well, that's all I have for you right now, folks, and thanks for being a part of the From the Shadows podcast family. So with that being said, let's get this episode started.
Hey, welcome everyone to the From the Shadows podcast. I'm your host, Shane Grove, and joining me here at Suburban Lanes, our home away from home, is the super producer, Jason.
Greetings, everybody.
And also sitting to my left is a former guest, now known as...
The Barrister.
The Barrister. The Barrister. At some point, we'll explain the name change to The Barrister, but, for now...
That's for another show.
That's for another show. Maybe that's for the Patreon show. And before we introduce our very, very special guest for today, because this is an off-the-cuff roundtable discussion we put together here tonight for all of our diehard fans. Talking about our diehard fans, we want to give a shout out to. Let's see. I just looked at the iTunes charts for Ireland, Denmark, Scotland, Slovenia. Am I saying that right?
I believe.
Slovenia?
I believe you are.
Okay. I mean, for some reason, we have a huge following in all those countries, and all those European countries.
I believe that Europeans appreciate good podcasting and cryptids and paranormal activity. I think that's right up their alley.
It's right up their alley.
Absolutely.
And so we want to kind of reach out to our European fans, not pay attention to the rest of our fans, but we have been approached with a maybe unique opportunity to do a tour of Europe with a country music performer in the upcoming future here. And so we want to reach out to all of our European fans. Talk to us on Instagram, on our Facebook, After the Shadows, or From the Shadows page. Send us messages, do whatever. Let us know you're listening. Let us know that you want us to come.
I'd love to do a show from the Blue Lagoon in Iceland.
There you go. If
it was good enough for the Kardashians, it's good enough for us.
It's good enough for you.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
So reach out to us. Let us know that if we come to Ireland or Scotland or Great Britain even. I mean, people listen to us in Great Britain.
Quite a few, actually.
Slovenia. I hope I'm saying that right. Slovenia? I don't know.
I think so.
I don't know. If I'm not saying it right, I apologize.
Well, my ancestry is from the Canon of Bern in Switzerland, so maybe we need to swing by Switzerland.
There you go. So reach out to us on all our social media. Tell us that you would be first in line or second in line or whatever to get tickets to see a show. I'm not going to reveal who the country music star is at this point, but we want to kind of just see how How many people want to
So
come
that's
out?
the kind of feedback.
Yeah, see our
And just
shenanigans.
from a historical standpoint, I have direct descendants from the Swiss Royal Guard.
Really?
Yes, I do.
What is that going to get us?
Oh, boy, I don't know. We'll have to find out when we get there. But no, but in my family tree, they guarded the monarchs of Europe, not just the Pope,
Really?
but multiple monarchs, France and stuff like that. Oh yeah.
All right.
Nice,
Love
nice.
it. I love it. Jason, me and you got nothing, right? We're
Got nothing.
We got nothing. All right. Well. So tonight we decided to bring in one of the other members of the podcast family, the Ozark Howler. He's going to join us tonight, and we're going to talk alien conspiracies, especially with all the current, in the last couple of weeks, there's been 2 or 3 different revelations in what the government's been keeping from us and what they're about ready to let us know about. So
That's true.
Howler, welcome to. Does this feel weird not being on a midweek Howl, being on a regular episode?
It does. I felt I was uncomfortable with the barristers talk about the Swiss Guard. That made me a little bit uncomfortable. I'll be quite honest with you. And because like in 1066, my ancestors went over to what's now the United Kingdom, overthrew them. You know what I mean? So the Danes in my background were too busy skewering those Swiss guards. So, you know what I mean? I felt bad. Hunter gatherer conquerors is what I come from. You know what I mean? So I just felt bad, and I hope I don't get canceled. I hope you guys don't cancel me.
I got to be honest with you.
I hope you don't cancel me.
Howler, the Swiss Guard is still in existence.
I know, that's what I mean.
And you're hiding out somewhere in fear of the Swiss
that's
Guard.
Exactly right. I was going to say something bad, but I've got to choose my words. I've got to choose my words. So I can't say it because I promised Grover there that I'd kind of try to stay in between the lanes because I'll go off the rails at any minute. You know what I mean? At any minute.
Oh man, that's priceless. Well, so Howler, we got you here tonight because for all of our regular listeners that may not know your background, you want to give a little bit of background that you have in government so that people can understand where you might be coming from?
I have been a stakeholder in a principal party in all kinds of conspiracies, both good and bad. Okay, so I think I told you this the other day. The problem when you read the government puts something out, right?
Yes.
What happens is something happens, and some dude somewhere. The government is a mosaic picture that's got millions of little pieces, right? And 1 or 2 little pieces get into something. And depending on how they handle that something, bigger pieces get involved. Okay? Yes. And eventually those bigger pieces call even bigger pieces who get attorneys and media people involved. They have press release people that do nothing but write press releases. Okay? And wordsmiths and usually failed attorneys and journalism majors, and they're working for the government to tell the population what's going on. And what would happen is you would tell your boss, hey, this is what's going on. And a dude above him, and a dude above him, and a dude above him would say, okay. And then you would watch it on the ticker on your favorite news network. And what they're saying is nothing about, you know what I mean? It resembles nothing that was happening. Can I give a story? It's somebody else's story. It's not my story.
No, that's
okay.
Listen,
go ahead.
You can feel free to tell any story.
So
is it an alien story?
No. Okay. Well, when Timothy McVeigh bombed the building in Oklahoma City,
okay,
essentially every DOJ entity, FBI, U.S. Marshals, everybody was. This is pre-Homeland Security, so it was FBI, U.S. Marshals, DEA, everybody that had resources, everybody that could drive to Oklahoma City was tasked to driving there. Everybody that was within 8 hours. So the people I happened to work with were in Nebraska and Iowa, and they had to drive. They were within driving distance there, right? So as the case unfolded, they went out to the house that what was his name? Not Timothy McVeigh. What was the other guy? Barrister. Who was the other guy with McVeigh? Terry Nichols. They got out to a farmhouse. My partner, the dude that sat next to me, and really kind of steered me in that organization. He was at Terry Nichols' house with some guys from ATF and a bunch of FBI guys. Anyway, he's an FBI employee, and they had essentially a dummy. They had a gun that looked just like, I think it was a Uzi. I don't think it was an AK-47. I think it was a Uzi. And cops being cops, they're all fingering this gun, right? There's an ATF guy that looks at it and says, "You guys realize this is an inert gun." What do you mean it's inert? And the ATF guy explains to him how it's like a movie prop, or it's one of those things you can buy that at that time, it was an inoperable item that on the outside looked like an Uzi. You with me?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And in the process, one of these people in that house called their bigger piece, and next thing you know, Washington, D.C. thinks that there's a machine gun out there. And in federal law enforcement, when you get into something where you have bombs and and machine guns are so restricted, that's a big deal, right? Because they're going to use the weight of the government to crush somebody. So my buddy says they're out at his house, and now you got to understand, this is really, cell phones were in their infancy. People didn't have everything, but there was going to be a news conference where Louis Freeh was the director. Louis Freeh is going to talk about it. You with me?
Yep.
So they turned the TV on in a Terry Nichols' house to watch this news conference where he's going to talk about, because they're in Kansas, I think. They don't really know what's going on. Let's see what the boss has to say. They turn the TV on, and some U.S. attorneys talked. I don't remember who the attorney general was, Janet Reno maybe at the time. All these people get to talking, and when Louis Freeh gets up there, one of the first things he says was, "And they had in possession a machine gun."
Just like that.
And these guys all looked around at each other and was like, it's not real. Well, who said it? I didn't say it. Well, why do we want to correct it? We can't correct it now. It's out.
Wow.
So that is a segue into
yes.
That is a segue in there. Some dude's driving around and they run into ET, right? They run into an extraterrestrial. They run into UFO. Some crazy stuff happens. Depending on what happens to them, they'll either be disbelieved or the story will be changed so far that when Washington, D.C. gets done with it, the only thing that'll be the same is they were, maybe the state. They were in New Mexico. That'll be the only thing that's correct.
So what do you think then of who was it? Was it Radcliffe last week that came out and said he was the former director of national intelligence, and he
right.
Okay, so what do you think about John Radcliffe's revelation that?
Well, I think he probably believes what he said.
So you mean as a director of
national intelligence, which is kind of oxymoron, right? Because come on. You even think about the national intelligence. That go ahead, Barrister.
So here's what has been related on other TV programs and whatnot.
Yep.
That the government created a program to investigate the viability of extraterrestrial life. Not only does it exist, but has it visited the planet Earth? Does it pose a threat to national security, world security? And that was funded, and it went into existence for I don't know how many years, and then they eventually closed it out.
Project Blue Book.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
now, did they close it out because they said it's no good, or they scared of what they found?
Well, or they just call it a different name and fund it in a different way. I mean, there's a
Which
reason
seems
why
to be what they
why
did.
toilet seats cost $300 when you look at the budget. But
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's part of infrastructure, so they're about to buy it again.
yeah. So I think what boils down to, as they say in Hollywood, if we get down to brass tacks, is 1, does alien life exist in the universe? 2,
Without question. I
Okay.
don't think you can even question it, right?
2, has any alien life form visited Earth? Okay. And then 3, does the government know it? And if they know it, why aren't they telling us about it? That's kind of what it all boils down to.
Well, I think they have been with this drip, drip, drip.
Yeah.
I think, as I was, Grove talked earlier, they let these stories out, whether you choose your government inaptitude story, right? There's no truth to it. Maybe there's a little truth to it. And then 3 years later, when the story comes out, yeah, that was old news. So I think...
Well, it's interesting that they've been dripping stuff every time there's a controversial government
Now, are they doing it
issue
just so
going
people quit?
on. Yeah, so they're like, well, look,
Right.
don't pay.
Yes.
They can say, look, we told you about this 3 years ago. Well, yeah, but you gave it to
in
us
the middle of COVID.
in the middle of COVID on the back page when there's another highly controversial issue going on. So back to the original question: is there intelligent alien life form in the universe? You look at the
Now you're getting...
the Milky Way galaxy. The Milky Way galaxy, which is what we're in. Our solar system's in the Milky Way galaxy. There's hundreds of billions of stars, okay, like our sun, bigger, smaller, whatever, and there's however many planets circling those stars, just like ours. But then you say, okay, they took a picture from the Milky Way galaxy of other galaxies, and based upon the number of other galaxies that they were able to put in this one small area, they've estimated there's over 2 trillion other galaxies like the Milky Way. It's an unthinkable number. It's just simply an unthinkable number. So yeah, there has to be. I mean, there has to be intelligent life. So
I don't know about intelligent. Hold on a second. Now you're getting brass tacks. Because what if they're like the Earth was 10 million years ago? They might be full of dinosaurs right now and not evolved.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They might be.
Well, think of it this way, though. Think of it this way, though. The Earth is roughly, they think, 4.5 billion years old.
We're young in the universe.
So the universe itself, the Big Bang happened about 13 to 14 billion years ago. But for the first 800 million years, there was nothing but, there was no matter. It was all gaseous type states. And then what essentially happened is that gas formed stars. And when those stars got so hot, and they basically, when a star gets so hot, the chemical reaction in it creates iron. I don't know how that works, but it does. And then what happens, the star collapses on itself, and it explodes, and that iron gets thrown out all over the universe, and that iron then becomes planets and meteors and other physical matter. Okay, so we're 4 billion years old. We're a very young galaxy. We're a very young solar system. Our star's not that old. So, you think about in 4 billion years where life has evolved on Earth, imagine a planet that's 8 billion years old. How advanced would that life be?
That's the
Well,
point
I don't
that
know,
was thinking.
because if they didn't have Einstein, would they invented all this stuff? I don't know. What was that? I hate to bring Hollywood in this. What was the movie? Not Elysium, where Tom Cruise. There was just another guy just like him over the horizon. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think it would be dependent on the evolution. Maybe I don't know. If they don't have an Einstein, if they don't have a von Braun, do they make that rockets? If they don't have a, I don't know.
And what if we're so young that they have already visited us a million?
Maybe we're them. I mean, maybe we're a penal colony. I mean,
what if they visited us while we were covered with dinosaurs? Or covered with the Ice Age, and
but understand. I mean, look, the thing that basically holds everything up is Einstein's theory of relativity, and then you have nothing that we know of can travel faster than the speed of light. Okay, so you say, okay, if the distance between Earth and the nearest habitable planet is so astronomically far away that if there were an alien species from another galaxy, I mean, from another galaxy would just be impossible. It would, and
they would have to be much more advanced than us, for sure.
First of all, a straight propulsion system, you would never be able to travel from another galaxy to the Milky Way galaxy. It's just too much.
Take over 1 million years.
No, it take hundreds of millions of years.
Yeah.
So even within the Milky Way galaxy, to travel from one end of the Milky Way galaxy to the other, it's so many light years, and light travels at 184,000 miles per second.
Yeah.
So realistically, forget that there's life in other galaxies that we'd ever see. It's just too far. 2, the life form would have to be inside the Milky Way galaxy, which is still unthinkably big. Okay. So they would have to create some form of propulsion system that has nothing to do with actual, like...
But we have proof of that. I mean, you look at the Tic Tac video. This Ratcliffe guy said there is video evidence, there's surveillance evidence.
So what I'm saying is, forget fossil fuels, okay? Yeah. Or maybe we're out mining dilithium crystals, okay, like Captain Kirk. I think what you're looking at is that you're going to have to find a species that has been able to figure out gravity drives and be able to bend space-time. That's the only way it's possible.
But I think the thing is, though, is based on what has been released, the video, the Pentagon saying they have off-world vehicles, and then what this Ratcliffe guy just said last week, that's not even in question. That way.
Yeah, I mean, I know. What I'm saying is, it's the, what is it? Is it the Missouri state that is the Show Me state?
I think the Missouri state's the Ozark Howler state.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So, you can show me a video and look, videos today can be doctored, can be altered, can be fake.
Not from the military. You think the military?
What, you think the military would fake stuff?
But what would be their purpose of faking it?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I'll tell you. Hold on a second. I think I have a theory. First of all, let me bring this back to how life is in the Ozarks. Right, when you're talking about building gravity, defeating vehicles, and bending the space-time consortium, I spent 45 minutes underneath my 20-year-old while ago trying to get to four-wheel drive to work. Prior to that, my biggest question of the day is should I use quarter-ounce jigs or an eighth-ounce jigs to crappie fish in this current? That's what I was worried about. And now you have got me worried about the space-time continuum. This is what I think when I see somebody like Ratcliffe come out with something. I think I've told you the story. I don't know if I put it on the podcast or not. When I was a trooper in Missouri, that academy was they called it a quasi-military academy. And you had a bunch of ex-Marines and you had a bunch of dudes that were instructors, and they yelled at you, and then they made it Full Metal Jacket, right?
Yep.
And you had to stand at attention on it, and you had roommates and you had suite mates. Not to get into the devil details, but you had every Friday night, you had these inspections, and you had to stand outside your room door. And this lieutenant, these sergeants, they'd walk down the halls acting like idiots, and they would look at you, and they would start with your haircut, and they would go to your pins and your tie, all the way down to your shoes, and depending on what was going on, they for so. Every Friday, I had to stay late. Now, I lived 6 miles from the academy, so I didn't care. Some of these guys had to drive 4 hours home. Every Friday, I got in trouble because my boots were bad. And right before graduation, this lieutenant called me in on another thing that maybe I'll tell sometime on the Patreon, or maybe I don't know. It's funny, but it's also questionable in some ways. He said, "Hey, what's the deal with your boots? How come you can't figure them boots out?" And I said, "I beg your pardon?" And he said, "Every freaking week we've got to, I don't remember what he called it, about your boots. You can't seem to polish them. Can't these guys, somebody, Steve," and I won't say his last name, he was a Marine, and he was my first trimester roommate, and, his boots always look great. Couldn't he teach you? How come you just couldn't grasp that? And I said, because I want you messing in my room. He goes, do what? And I said, you flunked me in the hallway every time. Because what happened is, so say your uniform was perfect, then they went in your room, and your bed had to be right, and your closet had to be right, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was no right answer. But they never went in my room because they flunked me on my boots. So when I see them guys put that out there, okay, what do they really hide? Because we're going, yeah, the government's been talking about UFOs that fly 4,000 miles an hour, whatever.
So you're
that's
thinking,
so we stop because they got some real shit, right?
So you're saying
I think it was the aliens.
They're giving us the boots, is what they're giving us.
Yeah, that's right. They're giving us the boots because you know why? I think the aliens got over Trump's fence, and they were the ones in the Capitol. I think E.T. was in the Capitol with them horns on. You know what I mean?
That's the wrong fence and the wrong aliens.
I don't know.
So here's a stat.
All I know is, go ahead.
Here's a stat for you. Milky Way galaxy. To go across the Milky Way galaxy, it would take 200,000 years in a spaceship if you were traveling at the speed of light.
Holy.
So you're saying 184,000 miles per second. It would take you 200,000 years just to make it across the Milky Way.
And that's just the Milky Way.
That's just
so you're saying if we take the deficit, federal deficit, and stack it dollars on top of each other, they'll go across the Milky Way twice.
Well,
I don't know.
How fast can you stack money?
This is what's happening. I think you just blew 99% of the people out of the water with that statement right there, because the average person ain't going to care how many extraterrestrials come down here as long as the EBT card works, the satellite dish works, the internet. You know what I mean?
Right.
More power to them, right? More power to them.
Well, I'm not getting on a political soapbox because we don't talk politics here. But the reality is this. People do not care what's going on in the world. All they care about is getting that $1,400 check.
Yeah,
and I'm not talking about people who are destitute, who need that $1,400 because they are broke. No, I'm not talking about. I'm talking about professional people who I know are pretty well off people, and they say
we got to pay for it anyway.
Well, they're sitting around griping, I didn't get my $1,400 yet, and I'm sitting there thinking, you've got a lot of other things in your life you need to be worried about right now. That $1,400 is a blip. But that's the point. I think you're right. I can
tell you, and you're right. I could go to the post office tomorrow if they announced that aliens had been on Earth and we're in different parts of the government and we're getting ready to. They owned the Browns. Doesn't matter. Baker Mayfield was an alien. That's why he saw the spaceship.
No, they won't believe you because if he was an alien, he could win.
Yeah, but he could come from a planet where they're just not very good at football.
They're just a bunch of losers. But I could go to the post office tomorrow and they wouldn't care. They wouldn't care. Be like, well, that's great, but you still got a job to do.
Can you get these packages out there?
Can you?
Bezos? Bezos kind of looks like an alien.
Well, that would kind of make sense.
That is funny.
Maybe this whole Amazon thing was set up. It's so successful because he's using his extraterrestrial capabilities to defeat everybody.
Super brain.
Him and Zuckerberg.
Well, I don't want to say that because I don't know. I'm not a Facebooker, and I'm let down. Certain people let you down. They always say don't meet your heroes because you'll get let down or whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's one of the reasons why I never go to Ohio. And anyhow,
well, then you're not going to Europe.
There you go.
I can fly over top of it. I've been to Europe a bunch, that's the best he can do. What I wanted to bring Harry. Hey, I wanted to bring Harry and Megan into it because I'm kind of down on Harry recently because I'm like, dude, you had. I mean, pre his marital position now, he had the pick of the litter, right? So he could walk through not only Great Britain, but the Commonwealth countries, right? So what is there, 22, 26 Commonwealth countries? And you could score, I tell the story sometimes when I was, my son and this other boy he runs around with, they want to be farmers. They, you know what I mean? They want to be real farmers with row crops and combines and everything else. And the other night I had to tell them, I said, you're going to have to marry into it. That is the only
That's right.
way.
That is true.
Yes.
And my sergeant, back when I was a young trooper, my sergeant, it was a joke. I used to say, I don't care how much she weighs, how much land does she come with? And that has turned into fruition. And so I don't think Zuckerberg's an alien, or he just, you know, because if I was an alien, right, if I had extraterrestrial capabilities, right, oh my gosh, I mean, you guys wouldn't, you know, I mean, I'd own this place, right? You know what I mean? I'd own this place. I wouldn't be hanging out in California. I love California. I wouldn't be hanging out in California worrying about what Trump's posting. I already conquered the world, you know, and I already have this world. I don't know what I'd be doing, but I wouldn't be jacking around like some of these smartest people in the world jack around.
Well, but so here's what you have to understand, though, and in all seriousness, we're talking about if aliens have visited Earth, then they have mastered a propulsion system so sophisticated we can't even understand it.
We won't even know if they're here.
No, and so
we won't even know if they're here.
Which means they have a raw intelligence that far exceeds us. So at some point, you know, and I listened to like Jordan Peterson and his book and different things like that. And you start talking about, you know, look at Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs of human beings. Okay,
right?
You would be talking about a species that doesn't think like we think in terms of possessions, and you know, take from a Far Eastern standpoint, you know, from a Buddhist standpoint. I
see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? Possessions is suffering, stuff like that. So I don't think that if you are that smart and you're that technologically advanced that you're going to come here and try to run Facebook or run an Amazon shipping company.
That might be the beauty of it, though.
Come on, man. In practical sense, you would have to serve a purpose to come here.
I was saying, okay, so maybe that's why they hooked up with ugly girls, but I don't know, because they don't see it like we see it, right? So I don't know.
Well, think about it this way,
or maybe these girls are extraterrestrials.
Well, think about it this way.
And we don't realize that.
Every civilization, and I mean every civilization that has rose on planet Earth, all boils down to power and commerce. That's it.
That's
power and commerce.
Yep.
So if there is a civilization from another part of the universe,
include religion in that too.
Well, but no, because
that's a way to harness the power.
That's the power,
that's a way to harness the power.
That's the base.
Yeah, but keep in mind, there's the largest population on planet Earth are not religious. They believe in a philosophy. It's not a religion. Okay, so what I'm saying is that it would be reasonable to believe that whatever civilization would make it to the planet Earth, they had two things in mind: power and commerce. All right. So what is it about the planet Earth from a commerce standpoint that would be attractive? Natural resources. There's not that many planets that we know of that have an atmosphere like ours and also have liquid water like ours.
Well, there's quite a few. There's quite a few just like ours.
And in solar systems that are much, much older than ours.
Yeah.
I don't know. You guys have obviously thought this out a lot more than me, because, like I said, my mind goes between crappie jigs and 4-wheel drives and bass boats. You know, I spend half the day worried about, should I charge up the batteries on my bass boat? And you're talking about power and commerce. The only power and commerce
sort of is the nature of the podcast.
How much the commerce I got is, okay, are the batteries I bought last year going to give me enough power for my 24-volt trolling motor? That's what I'm worried about. You know,
I got to be honest. I think probably the majority of our listeners are probably leaning more towards us than worrying about the crappie jigs.
Nah, I don't think so.
Well, I think they are.
Maybe.
Think so.
I don't know. I just know that you guys are scaring me. I guess that's my whole point. Maybe, you guys might be scaring me because, if there's some bad shit out there, I don't know if all the magazines I've loaded up and the bullets I've ordered are going to work against them. So now I got to find something
Yeah, I
else.
don't think it
So
would.
now I got to find something else. So you guys have scared me.
Well, keep this in mind though. If this alien civilization has been here, it's been here for way back. I mean, you look at some of
Maybe it's still here.
yeah. I mean,
Just
I
like
don't
the
see
Men
it
in
like-
Black. Just like the Men in Black. I mean, they're really amongst us, right? Maybe they're really
Well,
amongst us.
If you go down to South America to some of those ruins where they, and I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but some of
Yeah.
the structures that they have are laser cut. I mean, the
Right.
fittings they're laser cut. And
Yeah.
We would struggle to be able to do it today.
Right.
And they're doing it thousands of years ago. I mean, that's pretty obvious that those things were assisted or helped created by.
With writings on cave
Yeah, I
walls
mean-
showing that they've had people that have
So,
helped them.
so look, I don't think
That might
if-
go into where they were here and just were like, okay, we've got what we wanted and we're
Well,
leaving.
yeah, but think of it this way: if your plan was to conquer the planet Earth, you'd have already done it before we were able to harness the power of the atom.
Well, how do you know they haven't conquered?
So hey, maybe
your
maybe
vision
they've
of
already
them
been here and left, and this is the trash bin. This is the waste bin of what was. Right?
I got to be honest with you. There's a theory out there that says the aliens are still here. It's us.
Yeah.
That we're the descendants of an alien race that came here.
They seeded this place.
Yeah, they seeded the place. That's. I mean, and
Okay,
that's really
so
not that
in that
far-fetched.
case, why? And we've just got dumbed down over the last 2,000 generations, or what?
Maybe.
Look, it's made a rapid decline just over the past decade.
90 days. Oh, yeah,
Yeah, you got that
yeah,
right.
that's right. I don't know.
Well, no, think about it this way. Here's what I want you to think about: a real statistic. There was a guy back in the early '90s, I think, wrote a book called The Bell Curve, and it was highly controversial. And what he basically said was that, look, people with the higher IQs do not reproduce at the same rate as people on the lower end of the bell curve.
That's true.
That's
And
very
it was
true.
very controversial because they tried to interject race and stuff in it, and they shouldn't have, because it has nothing to do with race. It has to do with that if the more education you get, the longer you go in education, the less opportunity you have to procreate because you're in school and you're struggling
And you're working.
and so statistically speaking, the stats are out there. I'm not going to delve into it and look it up on Google, but the lower IQ people reproduce at a higher rate. Well, just keep going generation after generation after generation after generation, and suddenly the average IQ doesn't go up. It goes down because keep in mind, you're measuring IQ average on a bell curve. Okay? So when you look at from the bell curve, over the next 50 years, the average IQ will continue to go down. If we keep up the same pace. But there's nothing to suggest that pace is ever going to change.
Right.
Especially now where we are coming up with social welfare programs, and I'm not saying incentivizes that, but fund it. Like early on, I mean, keep in mind, in earlier times where there's no social welfare safety net, okay?
Well,
couldn't do it.
in the last 100 years, I mean, if the world's 4 billion, is that what you said, 4 billion?
Yeah, approximately.
So that's 4,000 million. Well, they didn't even have electricity until really the last 100 years. Good electricity,
Yeah, true.
or cars, or running water.
So wouldn't that
Look,
say
my grandparents were crapping in outhouses. That was what they
Yeah,
had.
so-
wouldn't that say though
So
that
hold
we're
on a
getting
second.
smarter because of all these
No,
technical?
because do you know how us when I say us members of this podcast remember having to memorize a phone number. I can tell you the phone
yeah.
number I had when I was 7 years old. Okay,
Me too.
and now kids can't memorize anything, and even us, because it's stored in our phone, right? Right.
So here's an interesting stat. I
so
can tell
think
you the
about-
phone number to every pizza place in this town because
There you go.
if it's the same number that predated cell phones, and most of them are, okay? And that's
There you
because
go.
I had to learn it.
That just tells me that you were just a
I enjoy
terrible
pizza.
eater as a kid
I was.
and eat pizza all the time. That's all it tells me.
Well, actually, I just thought he was making it up because who would know? I mean, how would you know any different?
Because some of us
So-
here at the
I'll
podcast
rattle them off right now if you don't believe me.
Some others of here at the podcast are terrible
So-
eaters too and might not.
So I guess, and thinking about how we rail, like the new kids don't even know how to write in cursive, right, or read in cursive. You know, there was a meme out there last week that said you want to defeat a whole generation, give them a 5-speed, a car with a clutch, and write in cursive. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
so even
my worst
100
class was writing, by the way.
100 years ago, our parents, if they came back, great grandparents were, they would think we were complete idiots.
Well, think about it this way. Look at the founding fathers. Okay, founding fathers. Those guys had very little formal education. However, they were self-taught. I mean, almost those guys, like Jefferson, Washington, those guys, they spoke 3-4 different languages. One of the languages that they spoke fluently is Latin.
Yes.
And nobody even speaks it. That's
Absolutely.
a dead language.
Yep.
I mean, those guys are...
I got 2 sisters that can speak it, but that's a whole nother story.
Look at the newspapers of the 1800s versus a newspaper of today, which are dying out if you have a hard time even finding a newspaper. But look at the words, the linguistics. Look at how they used to speak versus what you see now.
When I was in college and I was taking an education class, they told me that newspapers were written because the average person could only read at a 6th grade level. So newspapers today, or back in 1988 and 89, were written so that someone with a 6th grade education could read it. You go back, like Jason said, and you look at that stuff. And an interesting thing is I found my grandmother's, we found these box of books, and it was her arithmetic and reading and language arts books that she had as a kid that was taught to her at home by my great-grandmother. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's hard stuff.
Yeah.
It shocked me. Yeah. It shocked me. And now you have parents that literally flip the script because they, during COVID, had to teach their kids. They had to make sure that they're... And I'm sitting there thinking, if you looked at the stuff that my grandmother had to do with them books, you would freak. So, but I went up to Rutherford B. Hayes' house, President Hayes, and he had this massive library. I mean, just huge. And he read every single book in there. And you can pick a book up off the bookshelf, and you can see his personal notes because he wrote all kinds of notes in the margins. It's fascinating. People don't read today. They don't.
Well, that's because we have a TV, we have computers, we have, I don't even know. I don't even know.
Yeah,
it's all alien.
And maybe
technology.
that's what the alien did. Maybe the aliens created that to take us over,
right,
from the inside.
Technological advancements have a tendency to dumb down the population as a whole, which in turns, we look at it from the outside in, saying that as technology advances, we as a people get smarter, but actually, we as a people get dumbed down.
I gotta be honest. I really enjoy Central Air. I'm sorry, it doesn't make me feel dumb.
No.
Well, that's okay. We're a softer, weaker people than what we used to be.
Dude, when we were kids, I was impervious to heat or cold.
Come on,
go.
I'm outside every day, no matter what it is. I don't want to hear about.
Do we have a guilty conscience here?
No.
I mean, did I actually say
you guys sit in a nice, toasty, warm office.
Hey, Jason,
one of us wears a robe.
Yes.
Hey,
Yes, Howler.
That's the best.
You know, we have a saying down here in the Ozarks.
Yeah, what's that?
You throw a rock in a pack of dogs, the one that yelps is the one that got hit. So
You're right.
I think
You're right. That's a good saying. There's some truth to that.
on that, right?
so back on topic.
Yeah.
It would appear to me, and this is obviously that we're just sitting here theorizing stuff, but it appears to me that alien civilizations have already been here. They assisted primitive man in architecture and in building things and probably farming and all kinds of sorts of things. And then either they stayed or they left. And maybe they came back and maybe they didn't, or maybe they're different species. And I know we get into this whole thing about, well, there's the grays and there's the lizards and there's all that stuff. I don't know about that. I mean, I'm not saying that's not true. But when you look at some of the South American drawings of looks like people in astronaut suits. Mm-hmm. They look like Homo sapiens is what they look like. They don't look like little green men or anything like that. So, you know, obviously we know one thing, and that is Homo sapiens were able to interbreed with Neanderthals, Denisovans, and all kinds of different...
Well, that's because they let them in the military nowadays.
Yeah, there you go. But anyway, so we know that Homo sapiens crossbred, and we have, if you're from European descent, then you have
you and the Howler are. I mean,
all right, we probably have statistically 4% of our DNA is Neanderthal. That is a pretty.
Sounds about right.
If you're from Europe, so
Yeah, but what? Go ahead.
and if you're from Nepal or Tibet, then you have this race called Denzivans.
Yep.
Denzivans, and you have a percentage of your DNA is Denzivan. So what percentage of us is alien?
We won't know that because we don't have any samples of alien DNA.
Correct.
So we wouldn't know that.
Exactly.
But we do know that when you map the human genome, there's things in our genes that we can't explain because they're not used right now.
Well, let me ask you this. Chimpanzees, which is our closest relative, we have the same DNA, 96% match with chimpanzees. Mm-hmm. Okay, think about that. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I'm not saying this happens so before somebody goes on here and skewers me, but if you think you have something, where's that 4%? What is that 4%? Is that 4% alien DNA that they put in primates to see, and now over hundreds of thousands of years, we evolved into what we are today because of that 4%?
That's an interesting theory, but we have nothing that we can base it on.
Well,
so
true.
all we can do is theorize about that.
Right. But that's my point.
Right.
Is that you start talking about, well, I'm 4% Neanderthal, and I'm 96%
chimp.
Yeah.
And we have strains in our DNA that we don't even
I don't know
use.
about chimp, but there's some damn sure chumps out there.
Yeah, we know
So,
that. That's for sure.
I don't know. And see, that's exactly why I think we have the viewership or the audience that we do across this world, because this is where smart people come, right? This is where smart people come either to listen.
People come to this podcast because
That's right, because there's no limits. There's
no limits, and we are a platform.
From crappie jigs to the Milky Way to genomes in your DNA. We know no boundaries, right?
To basset hound ears.
I kind of like
this
that.
This is like a think tank, man.
Yeah.
We just sit around and think.
Well,
But
it's
I
more
would
like a
encourage-
No,
It's
we
more
are
like a
a
septic
think
tank.
ocean.
What are you talking
You don't
about?
get it. This is a think ocean.
Yeah.
Well, so Howler, I want to ask you this.
Think fishbowl.
Yeah.
Did you? Okay, so your days as a sheriff's deputy and highway patrolman, were you ever on duty, or did you ever hear any of your colleagues talk about going on a call for a possible UFO?
No, but I don't think. Hold on a second. But you know what's weird is I probably saw 15 or 20 falling stars, and I don't remember ever growing up seeing that many. But when I was driving around at night, I seen them a lot, and I always thought that was odd.
Well, okay, so now that you mentioned falling stars, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna tell my UFO story that the barrister might know this. I don't know if we've ever talked about it. I know Jason doesn't know it. But when I was in high school, the young lady that was my girlfriend at the time always wanted to see a shooting star or falling, you said falling star or shooting
Yep.
star, okay? And she lived outside this small town in Ohio called Nevada. And so on most nights when I'd be leaving and we'd walk outside, she'd want to look up in the sky and see if there was a falling star. And over in the southwest sky, we saw this light, and it was just coming down, okay? And she goes, "Is that a shooting star?" And I'm like, "No, I think that's an airplane," because it didn't look right. It wasn't like, shooting stars just across the sky. Mm-hmm. And I go, maybe that's an airplane. And as we're standing there over the front of her house, because we're standing on the back porch, you can see there's an airplane going over. Mm-hmm. Okay, there's an airplane, and you can hear it, and you can see the light flashing. Mm-hmm. And so now the hair on my back of my neck starting to stand, and we look back over, and this light is still just descending straight down. And if I had to guess, it's probably 2 miles away, and it's over top of woods. And it starts red light, green light, red light, green light, and it's just dropping straight down. And this is the funny part. So
like a spider slowly coming down,
slowly down. Okay. And, so we could hear the airplane. There's no, that wasn't a helicopter. Of course, where it was, where it would have landed, it would. And I tell her, I said, go inside and get your mom's camera. That's what we had to do. There's no cell phones back then. Mm-hmm. And she was so terrified, she would not even let go of my arm to go in the house to get the camera. And so we just stood there, and it wouldn't have been a very good picture anyway. But we stood there and watched this thing go and just drop straight down disappear into what was the woods. Okay. Now, I don't know what it was. Okay. It's the same as our experience out in the woods in Shawn Acres. Okay. I can tell you what I saw.
Now,
I don't know what it was, but hang on. In the years since, in that same area, I have heard 3 different people tell UFO stories of things they have seen in that same area. So you tell me, okay? There's no airport. Nobody owns a private plane. There was no drones or anything back at that time. What was it that we saw, and what was it that these other people
now saw? Was you now hold on a second.
Yeah.
And she was terrified.
She was terrified. Yep.
Now
And there's no reason to be terrified except for the fact that we had no idea what it was.
Well, maybe it was love. Is that when you got her pregnant?
No, this is not that girlfriend. But thank you
This is
for
a different one.
Thank you for Thank you.
Dude, I'm sorry. I had to do that to you.
I will tell you a story though about Grover's first date with this girl.
No,
He took her out to dinner, and he was sitting across from her.
Oh,
and he looked deep into her eyes, and his knees felt really weak, and he thought he was going to faint. It was at that point he knew for sure that he had roofied the wrong drink.
Well, yeah,
you know what? I just bared my extraterrestrial experience soul to you guys, and that's how you treat me.
No, hold on.
Aliens don't want to come to this planet.
Maybe, hold on a second. Maybe, where I'm from, west of where I'm from, when I was a kid, the place was littered. Western Missouri and eastern Kansas was littered with Minuteman and Minuteman II missile silos, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, we drive to the lake, turn the lake, go fishing, or whatever. You drive by 30 missile silos, and you could be out there fishing. And on any given day, the military flew a helicopter pattern to check on them, a plane. You know what I mean? There's all kinds of stuff. I said that they could be. I don't know. I flew down in a private plane with a buddy of mine. We flew down to, I think, Montgomery, Alabama, outside of Montgomery. I don't remember. We either flew to Alabama or Mississippi. I was trying to remember the other day. And we go in this little bitty airport to eat lunch. And it'll mean something to pilots, because pilots, when they're needing to get their hours or whatever, they pick different places to fly over here and eat lunch and fly back, And we ended up in this little bitty airport, this little bitty town in the middle of nowhere in either Alabama or Mississippi. And when we walked in, there was a plaques, and there's a picture of this guy, and then there was some plaques, and the third guy with us, the instructor pilot, said, "Oh, this is where so and so," and I'm making stuff up, but it was like a Chuck Yeager, if you will. So he wanted to learn everything, and it was a guy. He's dead now. He's an instructor pilot named Howard Wehrman. So he was a famous pilot in Northwest Missouri. But anyhow, this guy had at that time, supposedly, there was a point in time where he had more flight hours than any man alive.
Oh,
and and you know how he logged them?
How?
He logged most of them in a if you're familiar with what a J3 Super Cub would be, like a Cub or Super Cub like you'd have in Alaska, with the float tires you see.
Oh,
they're actually they're like a canvas plane from the 30s. So when they started instilling all these gas lines, both natural and natural gas, and there's 3 or 4 different kinds of gases that are pipelined across America, right?
Mm-hmm.
they used to have to fly the gas, the clear cuts, like daily or once a month. I don't remember. There was a process because I guess natural gas, it'll frost the ground. If there's not only natural gas, there's something else. It's so cold going through the pipeline that if there's a rupture, they look for frost on the ground. Right?
Yeah.
So there's dudes out there back in the 50s, 60s. I don't even know if I'm sure they got computers to do now, pressure or something, but
so he logged all his hours flying up and down the pipeline, basically.
Very low, very slow.
So you're saying people thought he was a UFO?
I don't know. I'm just saying, Grove. It could have been something. I mean, it could have been.
Well, this was in the middle of the night.
Because why would the UFO turn his lights on?
Well, I've heard that. But some people say that maybe it's a reflection. Maybe these spaceships or alien crafts are reflecting light.
And they had green and red lights. They had green and red lights.
Hey, look, I'm just telling you what I saw.
They were either. So were they Italian aliens or Mexican aliens?
Oh, jeez.
Well, no, I will say this: is we did have a guest on and talked about seeing a UFO with an infrared lights on, and basically, it basically could cloak itself. That they had a cloaking capability. So, I mean, this is one of those conversations that we'd love for our listeners to send us.
I don't know. Yeah, and you know what's weird is, I knew a guy that studied to be a not only an aircraft controller, but the fleet in Dandick, Virginia. And you got to go back into, especially the Cold War. They would track all this air if they're sitting in a training environment in Northern Virginia. They track civilian aircraft as practice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just because in the classroom they're tracking that because there's something that they don't have to pay for that's out there, right?
Right.
So, and even in some of the stuff that I've been involved in, we would go out and play, make role play or exercise in training environments where you're out with normal people who don't know what's going on, right? They don't know what's going on. So, this thing you're talking about, it could be a military exercise. There could be 1,000 reasons for that, or it could have been aliens, right?
Listen, I'm going with aliens because
Well, I would love for our listeners to send us some messages on Facebook or Instagram, however you want to do that. Email and give us your theories. And we love theories, and we love. I mean, Jason and I are big science guys when we come to practical arguments about alien life. Take into consider the math, the distance, the technology. Yes. Mm-hmm. Give us some theories about what you think. Aliens here, not here. There for a long time, I didn't think aliens existed. I thought it was us. I thought some 10,000, 25,000 years ago, we mastered time travel, and it's us coming back and observing our old selves. And that's why you never have any interactions.
Hey, better yet, to everybody listening, if you have a UFO experience, get a hold of us.
Contact us.
Because I want to have you on the show so the Howler has to listen to this story and not be able to refute it and just make fun of you like he did me.
If you're not already,
I didn't make because I don't know what their domestic situation was in school, like I know about yours. You know what I mean?
If you're not already a member of our group After the Shadows on Facebook, join it and tell us a little bit about your story, and we will definitely contact you and get back to you and get you on as a guest. We're very interested.
And even if you don't want to come on as a guest, you just want to give us your thoughts, we'd love to hear them.
Absolutely.
Because I will tell you, one of the other stories from that area where I saw that, unidentified light was somebody contacted me through the messenger, told me their story, but did not want to come on the podcast.
And that's perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine.
But
what it did is validated my experience a little bit more, and it was pretty good. So, but we hope everybody has enjoyed us rambling on about aliens. If you didn't, we apologize. But we hope that you got you open your mind a little bit. Think about some of the possibilities. Go do some research on your own. Reach out to us, with your theories, with your experiences. And if you are a regular listener to our Friday show and you're like, who's this Ozark Howler guy? Hey, look, we do an episode with the Ozark Howler every Wednesday. Right, Jason? At least me and Jason do. We do.
Absolutely.
So
it's too lowbrow for me.
It's too lowbrow for the barrister. But anyway.
Well, that's because y'all are talking about, it's too highbrow. You guys' normal show is too much for me because...
Look, we're not talking about any fishing lures or any outboard motors.
Or how big a boy you are.
How big a boy.
Exactly.
Yeah. I tell you what, biggin', I guarantee you, biggin', boy.
So everybody out there, make sure you check out our Wednesday episodes called the Midweek Howl, and you can hear some more of me, Jason, and the Ozark Howler. Especially if you enjoyed, we try to have a lot of fun, even more fun than we had on this one.
Our Irish listeners out there, if you want to see us come to Ireland,
Slovenia,
and if you want to see how much I can drink, game on.
Well, I'll tell you what, and if you like the Howler, and that you listen to every Wednesday, tune into our Patreon. We got memberships to various prices, but either way, you will not be disappointed.
The Patreon howlers are
they're a little more racy, but you're gonna love them all the same.
Don't bring your kids.
Yeah, they're not for kids.
Don't bring your kids.
So if that intrigues you, join them.
So everybody, thanks. Howler, don't go anywhere, because when we jump off of this, we're gonna record an episode.
Yes,
the Midweek Howl.
Yes,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna get more for nothing out of me.
More for nothing. So,
all right.
So thanks everybody for listening, and we're looking forward to hearing from you guys.
We're out.
Right.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.
God only